we left off, because what I'm about to show you is biblical evidence. The color that we were, and in some cases we were even darker than some of many of the Egyptians. Or you fail to understand that part because you're not studying the appropriate right way. Now we're showing this Song of Solomon, all these things already, right? But it also goes to show, let me read it. It says, these verses only make sense, which I agree, with a population already dark complexioned, not a pale European one. So you trying to identify or address that Jeremiah chapter 2, the black unto the ground and the cry of Jerusalem is going up, is not referring to their skin tone. It has enough on every part of not just dealing with their lamentation or their mourning, but also their skin tone black unto the ground, meaning black even unto a lower state. It will only identify these people as such. To make it worse, the Semitic line directs, which we know, directs to Israel, the table of nations. It directs to Israel directly, the ones that we're dealing with. Covenant to covenant. Alright? So let's continue. It says archaeological evidence. This is very important. Archaeological evidence, Egyptian archaeological evidence, contemporary to Israel, which is tomb of Rakimai, 18, which we read before, 18 dynasty, 14 BCE. Let's go into it. We need to address this right now. So you go into information, no problem. Museum number, description mentioned here. And what would you see in the images, by the way? Let's zoom in. For those that were saying that they were not of a darker hue and trying to debunk that fact, let's zoom in onto this information right here. So before we continue, let me zoom in first. Let it sink in. The ones that were bald-headed, that were slaves, were the Israelites. Many times we were forced to cut our heads completely bald. This is why the laws came in place to prevent us from doing such, because they're not of our culture. So let's show Egyptians, females here. Jacob, females here. And their skin tone is much darker than the Egyptians' skin tone. Which proves, by the way, so you see some have similar skin tone as the slaves, which were Israelites, by the way, and some were lighter shade than what Israelites, by the way. Now let's watch all of them. Darker, and then all, yeah, that's it. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? One more time. Are you seeing this? There was the men in the robes and the women with the kind of that particular code. Are you not seeing the servants and slaves? Are you not seeing this? And if we was the fucking slaves, what that means? What it means? So before we continue, the information which you are trying to provide has already been removed. Let me just say it straightforward. You are incorrect. Again, nice trying to debunk what you have no understanding of. But you are incorrect. So as you continue, you can even Google again, tomb of Rakimaya, Asiatic Semite, Egyptian ethnic color conventions, Egyptian consistently painted Egyptians, reddish brown, Nubians, deep black, Asiatic Semites, yellow brown or brown, and yellow brown to brown, and university college, modern So College London select, which you have here, but these aren't not, for some reason, when I press it, it's not going to the link. It's just doing that, not found. So we have to rely on what we see here in the British Museum, right? So it says Israelites fall under the Asiatic or Semitic, not Europeans. All right. In other words, Shemitic. But when you go into more hieroglyphs, it shows a distinct particular color dealing with our people directly, which, as you could see, are of a darker skin tone. And you see some of us were also of a lighter shade, but still a darker skin tone. Not white, not yellow, but a lighter skin tone than dark, than black, or than dark brown, to be exact. Right there. 1, 2. 1, 2. Now that is identified, it's understood. Let's go back into more in the information, because there's more that we need to go into. I'm not taking a long slack here for the cut of the video previously. I got a call which I need to answer. So, right. Alright. The classical and historical sources, which Herodotus, 5th century BCE, describes people of the Levant and Egypt as dark-skinned and woolly hair. One more time, dark-skinned and woolly hair. Now my question to you, did not Revelation and Daniel depict a person with wearing a particular apparel because it was only suited for them to wear? They were the ones chosen to wear it, because they were the only one that could have wear it, which are the girdle and the garment, and then the appearance or the description of the particular individual having woolly hair and dark skin, particularly Revelations 1, 14 and 15. Remember that? Remember that, right? Because this particular information provided actually coincides with that, by the way, proving even the Messiah to be of that particular hue. Right? Good. Let's see if we get this image up. There's another link. It's not an image, it's another link. Greek did not describe the Levantes as white Europeans. Genetics or bioarchaeological evidence, ancient Canaanite DNA bronze shows continuity with modern Levant populations. NIH, which goes into PubMed Central, which goes into another link. Then we have National Geographic. Let me go into it one time. This is what I get. Something went wrong, so I guess let me just come on. Many links are working, some of them aren't working. Let me just read. We just read it through. I guess. Yeah, I guess we have a choice at this point, right? Israelites genetically clustered with the Levant Shemites, not Europeans or sub-Saharan Africans, right? Jews and Arabs genetics affinity. Biblical archaeology review, which again, I hope this one works. I hope it works. So it's showing more so the imagery as to where they would have reside in, which is seen right here. When you go into it, Egypt is the close line, and then the next close line will be Iraq and Syria, which holds the whole thing if you're watching correctly, right there, right. So it shows that right here, and it shows the Levant and all these areas, but misunderstanding all of Israel, the entire land was ours. Now, of course, many heathens have taken it over according to biblical prophecy and truth, right? Which is why many of them are going to be punished when Yahweh Shai comes back, because hey, you kick you out of your land, you had us in captivity, all of y'all, and then you'll still decide to oppress us in our land when we're in our lowest estate, just because of the hatred they all have for us, right? So let's go back again. So right, so Oxford reference Levant population, that we went into, I believe. It says described as dark hair, olive to dark skin Near Eastern features. And they show you see where the Eastern features was, which would identify it to be what? More so of the Negro hue, the Negro type feature. But you don't want to hear that. Where again, I go Oxford, literally. So I will have to. So many information sources is correct there. Some of them has been removed. Now we know why, but let's continue. Alright, this is academic and consensus on European misrepresentation, medieval European recasting of biblical figures. By the way, it's there, necessary and proven, even in scriptures, where the heathen had some to paint the likeness of their images. They paint their likeness, the likeness of their images, how they would look like into our books and into our imagery, changing the image to suit them so that they could now adopt themselves into our people, customs, culture, and religion. In other words, Yahweh Shimi Shai, and the way we do things. Try to, by the way. Try to. See? Anyways, like keep going. Princeton University, Race and Biblical Art. Oh boy, I hope this one works. Let's see what happens. 404, page not found. Why are y'all moving the pages? You know you wouldn't move the pages a lie. I've seen many lies that has been on the internet, a part of history, which is easily debunked or easily corrected, which they didn't move, but the truth they're removing. Hey, that's more thing. Right, so it continues, says European images reflect medieval theology, not ancient reality. So it reflects medieval theology, not ancient reality. Summary: evidence locked. Ancient Israelites were Semitic Afro-Asiatic type, indigenous to the Levant, dark-skinned to brown-skinned, dark-skinned to brown-skinned, not European, not sub-Saharan Africans, consistent across Bible, archaeology, art, genetics, and anthropology at the end of the day. Alright? So with that information happening, there's more to get. We ain't playing. Come on, stop playing. Paul, stop there. Skin pigmentations of Israelites. Ancient Israelites were dark-skinned Semitic Levantines. Archaeologists and anthropology and ancient art, which we directly showed now, so you can't say this is not the case, right? We showed also right, when lashes relief and the Egyptian depiction consistently shows Israelites as dark-skinned and dark brown-skinned with tight coiled to wavy dark hair and Near Eastern facial features. See, this aligns with the natural human adaptation to the medieval sun exposure, not Europe. But there's a juicy part which you're going to get right now, and you're going to boil when you hear it. It says this aligns with the natural human adaptations, right? Usually, right? Genetics continuity confirms minimal change. Ancient DNA studies of Bronze Age and Iron Age Levante shows strong continuity in the into modern Levante populations, which dealing with what the land itself, including the Jewish and Palestine groups, right? However, this is the point which we are going to get. All right, I'm gonna get the part right. Bam, 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 bam. It says no. It says usually. Here it says, right? Skin color evolution arguments often misapply because it's not referring to the actual Israelites. We'll show you. The claim that skin pigmentation evolution would make ancient Israelites lighter assumes selective pressures like northern latitude UV exposure, which does not apply to the Levant. So you see where it says usually in that case, however, not in this one, which means that the Israelites did not or would not have evolved by lightening their skin tone. Let me say it again. This would mean that the Israelites then would not have evolved by the lightening of their skin tone, which does not apply to Levant. I said, therefore, the Israelites' dark skin persisted from ancient times to today. So if, not saying that they are dark, but you know what I mean, dark could be brown, a derivative of brown, all right, which is a light shade brown, light skin brown to dark skin brown. We could give an example to show that. Let's show this right here. A shade of brown, derivative of brown, derivative of red. You see the difference right there? Brown, red. So they can be of light complexion all the way down to dark complexion, and some of them can even be looking similar to red complexion. You know why? Because of the mingling of the other nations. We have to remember that. So understanding what I said, I'm going to go back. Let's continue now. Therefore the Israelites' dark skin persist from ancient times to today, reflecting the genetic stability and environmental adaptation. So no, that's not how it works. Let's continue with key takes. Evolution of skin pigmentation is real in general, but only in populations under certain pressures. Example, Northern Europeans. Ancient Israelites were not under those pressures. Their descendants largely retained the same dark pigmentation today. Archaeological, historical, and the genetic evidence all confirm that the majority of Israelites are still dark-skinned like their ancestors. Oh, wait. Pause. So that means that you, sir, that real cracking to do, right? And it says, just to confirm, is it biblically and historically accurate that the ancient Israel were dark-skinned Semitic people? Because I had to confirm because of seeing this after. You see that? So you know the next question is what? Okay. Yes, it's both biblically and historically accurate that the ancient Israelites were dark-skinned Semitic people of the Levant. Let me break it down. So we break it down again, which we went into before, right? And even going to Jeremiah 14 and 2, Lamentation 4 and 8, it says these are literal descriptions, not symbolic or metaphorical, reflecting how Israelites actually looked. But to me, it's both two in one. That's how I see that, but more so, right? Cultural context: the Israelites were Middle Eastern Semites living in Canaanite or Levant, surrounded by Canaanites, Phoenicians, and Arameans. Their covenantal identity is tied to their region and lineage, not appearance, but the biblical text still aligns with Near Eastern physical traits. You see that? It still applies. Boy, oh boy, are you in trouble? You want to debunk? You should have mind your business. Now you have to face this truth. You should have mind your business. Now you have to face this truth. Historical and archaeological evidence, the anthropology and ancient depiction, Egyptian reliefs, which we rented before, depicting Israelites and Canaanites shows dark-skinned and curly hair, curly wavy hair Semitic people. Assyrian relief of the Judean captives also shows Semitic features, curly hair and broad nose, medium dark skin, not European features. Genetic If evidence, ancient DNA studies from the Bronze to Iron Age Levant shows continuity with the modern Levant population, Palestine, Lebanese, and some Jewish groups, because there are a few groups that was found in the mountains that were of a darker hue, which practice what was taught in scriptures. So who knows? Hint, 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 hint. There are still a few of them that would be there. Hint, hint, hint. Just in case. And this is biblical proof to remove the aspects of what they like to say, that the Israel are now so-called European people, whiteys, or Israelites, or Jewish. This is why it has been revealed to the mass of the public. So now as we continue, let's go into the next one. It says, scholars consensus, the biblical and archaeological and genetics all point to ancient Israelites as Semitic, Middle Eastern, dark skin, consistent with the region of the Levant region and environmental adaptation, right? Distinct from Europeans and sub-Saharan Africans, as seen. We have the biblical, archaeology, which Jews and Arabs distinction. We have the links provided right there. Links provided all day. Conclusion: it is historically and biblically accurate. Ancient Israelites were dark-skinned Semitic people, indigenous to the Levant region, distinct from the Europeans or sub-Saharan Africans. We should go. It'll continue. I think we should continue. There's more. So I say, and are these sources canonical to history and Bible? Yes, the sources is canonical to history and Bible. And I went into it again. Point 2, historical and archaeological canonical support. The following sources are recognized in historical, archaeological, and biblical scholarship as authoritative. Ancient DNA studies, which we went into as well. You go on lower down into biblical and archaeological Assyrian and Egyptians relief, which we went into as well. Again, they're providing the receipts back to back. Scholarship, anthropology and linguistics studies show Semitic populations and ethnicity of the Israelites distinct from the Europeans and Rangers as well. And we have the link: biblical Israelites were Israelites white or black, which I know these words are social constructs. They are used to put down, mainly to confuse the appearance, and as a derogatory term for our people, because usually the word black would mean something negative. That's what they portray, right? As we know. Now let's go. I think that's the information provided with summary. Summary is no, do the math. Where's summary? Don't tell me. I mean, the summary will be the same, but why? Why? The summary would be the same. I think this is summary here. Biblical canon. Yeah, this is biblical canon. Song of Solomon. It says Jeremiah, Lamentation, genealogical. Oh my God. Genealogically describes Salak. Wow, that my tongue. Dark-skinned Semitic Israelites. Historical canon, archaeology, and ancient DNA, Assyrian, Egyptian depiction confirms the same. No credible historical evidence supports European or sub-Saharan African ancestry as primary for ancient Israelites. So with that being said, now you have to understand why this image is brought up, why the Messiah would be also a dark skin or Negro man with woolly hair as mentioned in the information that we provide, right? Because now you cannot deny this to be a fact. Because as we mentioned before, many of our people will call nigger, which actually goes back to the word black, which we'll get again. And the reason for that is because why? Because we will actually have that darker hue in ancient Israel. Now we are mingled and mixed with the other nations. We may look like them. Our appearance might be similar to theirs. The features might be similar to theirs, but it doesn't change the fact that our seed line goes back to what? Jacob. Let's read Acts chapter 13 and verses 1. Straight to the point. All right. Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manian, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul. So what were they called in NLT? In the NLT, among the prophets and teachers of the church at Antioch of Syria were Barnabas and Simeon, called the black man. In other words, let's go into the information provided, and you would see that it's referring to the nigger is referring to what is called black, right? They're black or black. And when you go into the information that we have, that we do our research on, which we usually provide receipts, as per usual, you have the information right, no, not there, right here. Acts 13, with information provided. In Acts 13 and 1, the name Simeon, called Niger, referred to a man who was a part of a group of prophets and teachers in the early Christian church at Antioch. We know that is not the case. Here's the verse. Now, right, it says, what does nigger mean here? Nigger is a Latin word for black, and in the context, it's likely referred to Simeon's physical appearance. One more time. And in this context, it likely refers to Simeon's physical appearance. He was probably a black man, or had dark, please, let's get the rest, or had dark complexion. Simple as you can get it. Cyrene is in North Africa. All right. And with more information, it's proven and shown that again, we have this here. This is clear. Let's read this part. The context of Israel in Egypt, and ancient Israelites were enslaved. Were enslaved in Egypt. It says, which we know, Egyptian records and hieroglyphs often depicts the people they interact with, including darker-skinned group. If the hieroglyph shows a darker-skinned group enslaving another darker-skinned group, that suggests that Israelites were dark-skinned but ethnically distinct from the Egyptians and the Hamites. Exactly. By the biblical lineage angle, Ham, Egyptian, Cushite, Puttite, Canaanites, the classic Hamite line. If the Israelites were dark-skinned but not the Hamites, then the process of elimination, they would come from Shem's line, since Shem and Japheth were the other major post-flood lines. Continuing, the Israelites were dark. Come on, why do this? Right, like right here, right? Bam. Right, same thing. The Israelites were dark. I can't. Why do I always screenshot shit so foolish? Anyways, all right. Dark skin, but not the Hamites. I guess you can see that in there. And then the process of elimination, they would come from Shem's line, which you just read, since Shem and Japheth were. Okay, we screenshot it good. Okay, the Bible describes Shem's descendants as the Semitic people, including the Israelites. This fits perfectly. Israelites equals Shemites, dark-skinned as depicted in Egypt, enslaved by the darker Hamites. Cultural and geographic consistency, Levant and Semitic features, medium to dark skin, curly to wavy hair. The implication, this explains why the Israelites could have been dark-skinned, yet not Hamites. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. So you see? So yes, your reasoning is solid, right? Now let's go. It says, so now can I ask this question? Was ancient Israel dark skinned? Yes, based on historical and archaeological and textual evidence, the answer is ancient Israel were dark skinned. Here's why. Lineage and genetics. Israelites descended from Shem, to Semitic line. Semitic people in the Levant and Canaan and Judea, surrounding people were Mediterranean to dark brown skin, not fair-skinned Europeans, which we read enough times. And we have to bring this to you enough times so you could understand that every part that you look at has the same answer. So those who want to be disingenuous or biased would would look for answers that suit them rather than the unbiased, like I usually post, right? Let's continue. Right, all these things, good. Let's get to conclusion. Ancient Israelites were dark-skinned Semitic people, distinct from that's what I get the comment from Europeans, from the European portrayals, right? Also distinct from Hamitic sub-Saharan African populations, right dimension. Let's keep going, right? So this exactly, when I put so, which is also why Simeon and Barnabas called nigger. You're connecting the dots perfectly, see? So they know this in history, and this is why they can connect the dots, because it's not that, oh, because of condition, they get darker skin, and that's based off of, no, nigga. They were already dark skin. They're already brown. Dark brown, light shade brown, whatever you need to have it. They were in the brown complexion. Not pale complexion. Make it worse. And because of the sun conditions, for those who had less pigmentation or a lighter brown complexion, it would have darkened their skin. This doesn't negate the fact that majority of our people back then were brown skin to dark brown skin. Like literally. You are trying to use that as an argument also makes you wrong. Again, how many times how many times I've shown that you are biblically, historically, canonically inaccurate. Yet you're going to find some way to sit here and change the whole narrative rather than to go into the history itself. I provide the links, all of them. Some I didn't even get to go into. Some of them I get to go into, so I get to realize that they removed the information because it would have hurt your narrative. This is, by the way, this is not me, but this is the historical evidence and archaeological evidence that was supposed to be there, that was removed so it wouldn't hurt your narrative. Next thing you hear, a few months from now, the same image that I pull up with the Egyptian thing get removed too. Who knows? It's to appease your narrative, your bias, and not the truth. So you now have to know and understand, where do I stand? Which part do I stand on? Continuing to remain biased because of what I want to believe in, or the truth? Because we know the truth hurts. But you can't do nothing against but for the truth. Which is why you are now debunked without me even trying to do it. I just provide the information, by the way. And as you can see, it's verbatimly clear here. Simeon, nigger, and Barnabas being called nigger, Latin of black or dark-skinned, reflects their physical appearance, not just a symbolic title. This fits with what we just discussed. The early Israelites, especially in diaspora or in mixed communities like Jerusalem, were dark-skinned Semitics. The term nigger or Niger wasn't implying they were Hamites or sub-Saharan Africans. It simply referred to their visibly darker skinned, consistent with Shemite Levant features. So stop playing. You need to stop playing. Yahushai was a first century Judean Jew descendant from Shem. Shemites in the Levant were dark skinned, brown eye with curly hair, wavy hair. So historically, it makes sense that he had darker skin and hair that could be described like shaggy or curly, wavy, not the tightly coiled, sub-Saharan African nor straight hair of Europeans. Why do I have to go into these information, provide receipts? Why isn't that y'all Christians why can't y'all choose to be genuine? Be genuine, provide unbiased information. Why do y'all always lean on sources that relates directly to Christians so that it could make sense to you? And when somebody else brings out the ugly truth, the unbiased truth, the unselective truth, you're vexed. You're mad. Why is that? If you had a heart of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, you would know that the truth regardless should stand. Even if it hurts your narrative, even if it proves you to be incorrect, biblically, historically, and canonically. Cultural and environmental texts. Living in a hot Levant, dark skin is adaptive and expected. And what? Adaptive 1, expected 2. Israelites dark skin, as we read, were the expected ones. Hamites, expected ones. Come on, we need to stop playing with the truth now. Hair texture also matches ancestral and Levant Semite, often described as shaggy in the ancient texts or by observers from other regions. Biblical and extra-biblical descriptions. While the canonical Bible does not give a full physical description, some historical and traditional sources, including later Jewish and Near Eastern texts, describes him as a dark-skinned with a dark hair which aligns with Shemitic features. Oh wait, oh wow. I guess we now know this, even though we knew this before having to dive in this information. We knew it before having to look deeper. And when we look deeper and provide it, you also try to remove it. You also try to suppress it because you can't debunk it. Let's continue. This also ties to the early church recognizing dark-skinned leaders like Simeon and Simeon Niger and associating dark skin with Israelites of Semitic lineage. Right there, right? So why do they now, my question, have their fake white skin with blue eyes, straight hair depicted as the Messiah? Well, we went into this already. So we can read it again. During the Middle Age and the Renaissance, most depictions of biblical features, including Yahushai, were created by European artists. Like the heathens had sought to paint the likeness of the... Let me get a precept. This is during Hellenization, by the way. So let's go into this one time. Maccabees chapter 3 and verses 48, which is something that you cannot ignore. And if you read the whole of this, it shows you what our people were going through in that region, what took place, what the wicked did to us, how they transfigured and transformed us, and how they even sought to go into our synagogues and recreate a narrative by changing the images. We can read this, simple precept right here. It can come from Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 45 and verse 48 to verse 50. But I just go to verse 48, straight to the point. And it says, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images, which we do have receipts to that too. Let me just come back on this. Receipts to that too, showing the Renaissance period where the heathens paint the image toward a darker skin tone. The Renaissance period, remember that? Which you just read, also according to that part of history. Let's get back. I think it's higher up. Right. I hope that, right here, right? It says, these artists naturally drew people who looked like themselves, paint the likeness of their images. Fair-skinned, blue eyes, straight and wavy hair. Art was heavily tied to cultural identity, not historical accuracy. Now you understand. Let's keep going. You can keep going on this one too because we need you to understand this more. But the lesson is getting a bit lengthy. So I'll close off after I read the conclusion here with another few precepts and then we'll close out, okay? It says, bottom line, the white Messiah with blue eyes is entirely a European cultural invention, not historical reality. It's the result of artistic tradition, colonization, and cultural projection, not anthropology and genetics or biblical record. Which is why scriptures made mention of the characteristic of these same individuals portraying the same act even today, where it says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. And verse 2, they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses, which they did to our land in Israel, and Hellenize us during the Greek time, which is why it was easy for them to remove and recreate these images. And we can show you that by the same actions, right? We got Maccabees, real quick, dealing with Mr. Alexander. Let's read. It says, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, and the first over Greece, right? And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went throughout the end of the world, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty stronghold, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. So he now had rulership over the earth, okay? And with that, of course, after his passing, Mr. Antiochus or Antiochus was the one when our wicked people came to him, he set a decree for us all, especially our people. Because remember, they have that designed hatred for us regardless. Alright? Now let's go back into Micah. So you see where in the actions to what they did, they covered fields and take them by violence, and because it is their blessings. So I'm showing you their blessings. What? By thy sword thou shalt live. Right? By thy sword, and he shall what? Reap or enjoy the fatness of the earth. So it's by his sword. Right? So it says, and take them away. So you take take them by violence, the fields and the house, which is your land, the dwelling place. Israel example, right? So they oppress a man and his house, one, even a man and his heritage. How does one oppress a man and his heritage? After capturing them, by recreating the images to look like them, so that they could take over or reign over that nation fully. It's not hard, which we just read right here. Read again. The white Messiah with blue eyes is entirely a European cultural invention, a portrayal, again, not historical reality. It is the result of Arctic traditions, colonization, and cultural projections, not anthropology, genetics, or biblical record, which we should. Alright, even when you go back, let me read it again. Alright, let me read it again here. Yahushua was created by European artists. It says, these artists naturally drew people who looked like themselves, fair skin, blue eyes, and straight or wavy hair. art was heavily tied to cultural identities, not historical accuracies. The same thing they did to what? The Japhets, portraying to be like them, calling themselves Greeks, kings over the Greeks. Come on. This is their nature. This is what they have always been like. This is nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. If y'all can't grasp this point, something is wrong. Something is wrong. This is why we told you that you're supposed to do what? Study. Because you can't go and provide receipts being prideful, thinking of what you see and what you believe in. Your wordplay alone is going to fix that. Because we provide all forms of evidence, sources, history, biblical understandings, so you can know, hey, this really is what it is, yes? It really is what it is. It truly is what it is. There's nothing we could say is an undeniable fact. It cannot be debunked. There are things that you try to say you can debunk, but really and truly, it just can't be debunked because it's the absolute truth. I hope this lesson is edifying. We'll end it off. This is why it's important to study to show yourself approved, unto power, a workman needed not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Because if you don't study, you will end up like that idiot which was posted on the front page. Because his claim is to debunk Hebrew Israelites, which again, I ain't see you debunk anything. Like I ain't see you debunk anything yet. I just hear. And the thing is, if you think I was done, my guy, I have a lot more information provided. I ain't done yet. I said, there's more information that we are going to bring out if there is a response with even more receipts, even the information I provided. If you all look at my videos, I do 1 and 2, but in reality, I doesn't go into all of them, even though I can. The evidence is direct. The evidence is direct. Literally, you're seeing the links. I can go into more of them, but I'll hold to this for now because you almost reach at 50 minutes. It's going to be a little too long and people would want to listen to it. And we know that. You know what Jake's mindset is. So again, I hope this lesson for now is edifying. I say Shalom Yasharala, Kal Halalyam Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Bahasham Rakakodash. We give double honor to the apostles and prophets and elders of James Camp, but to know as great millstone for the bring forth the 100% truth that have been currently edified under. Shalom to the elect, the tabernacle of David, and Aaron Bratislariak. Saying to you, Shalom.